Hello, can everyone hear me? When did you decide whether you wanted me to read Annals from the beginning or just the chapters that are happening today? Right, Orange Punch gets the decision because she's cute, according to Alex. Annals of Fear is open. Thank God you've just said that, because as I opened it I suddenly looked through the chapters and realised that there was one chapter that's almost entirely in Swedish. I was like, no, that's not going to be read out by me anytime soon. It might be read out by a pseudonym, but it's not going to be read out by me. Right, right, now my next task is to find out where it actually starts today. Okay, yes, that was last night. We've already tweeted that. That was last night. Oh, that takes place overnight. In because I don't speak Swedish. You can get the chapters that are in Welsh or the chapters that are in English. Those are your choices. Okay, I'm going to be starting this from chapter 17. I think it's chapter 16 if you're looking at this on AFF, but it's definitely 17 everywhere else in the world. The chapter title is called Lay Me Down to Sleep. I'm just going to kill some stuff. I'm going to look what that is before I kill it, and hope that it's not anything really personal. Oh no, it's just a thing. You were hoping for chapters in sign language. I can do British Sign Language as well. I'd have to get the what's it on it though, so they can film me. That'd be interesting. Me doing my stories in sign language. Hurrah! But I've just had some news as well. There's a lady named Any Nomads who hails from Russia, and she's just contacted me via AFF to say that she would like to translate my stories into Russian, which I've just responded to her saying that I'd be very honoured if she would do that, and so she's gone away with the permission to do it. Hurrah! At the moment she's only looking at one of the short stories, the one called for Guilty One, but the way she worded it, I think she was looking at an option of doing the others. So if anybody out there is Russian speaking for their native language, then I've asked her to give me the link when she's finished, and I'll link that up from the main site. Now, I know if anybody's watching this back later, you're going to see a little strip here that's got nothing in it apart from a little rubbish bin. As I'm reading, that's actually got the chat channel, but I know that's missing. In the house at the moment, I think we've got Orange Punch and Alex, Akka, Brooke Stardust. I don't think we've got anybody else in, but those two are loud enough to cover everybody anyway. Now I shall begin. Chapter 17, Lay Me Down to Sleep. Mello was waiting for Deontic as she stepped out of the little toilet just inside the back door. He hadn't enjoyed standing there alone, but talking to her through the door helped. It was better than going upstairs to the proper bathroom. His mind was full of the flat in Southampton, where whole weeks had passed imprinted on his memory only in horrific flashes. He wouldn't wish that on his greatest enemy. While Deontic was a rival, he didn't hate her. He didn't want her to go mad. Logically, her descent into insanity should be viewed as minor victory. Another whammy had shown a weakness, but this one hit too close to home. Mello wondered if he was overthinking this, projecting fears of his own decline onto worrying about her. Deontic's face was scrubbed clean, but she looked washed out. Her nightgown touched the floor. Mello smiled reassuringly and put his arm around her as they walked back to join the others. Sentry claimed the settee. Matt was lying right at the other side of the mattress closest to the stairs, the laptops lining the floor above their pillows. Mello smiled to note that both armchairs had been moved as a barricade between them and the staircase. He saw Matt's airy psychology behind that. "Okay?" Sentry asked, peering up. "She's fine," Mello answered for her. "But don't you think it's polite to offer the lady the settee?" "Oh," Sentry replied, obviously not wanting to move, though he made a great show of touching the hem of the quilt. "But I'm bigger than you three." Deontic gestured at him to stay. "I'll be all right here." She made no move to get under the covers, though. Mello eyed her, smirking. She took a deep breath and stepped over the laptop to scurry under the quilt, and then pressed herself as far back against the base of the settee as it was possible to get. Mello sighed. "Pequan, if it's any consolation, I'm a raving queen, and the only person in danger of being touched up by me is Matt." Deontic flushed scarlet, while Sentry roared with laughter. Matt just grinned. "Promises, promises?" Mello stood over him. "And you can move up as well." He noted the ashtray by the side of the mattress with the cigarette still smouldering in it. "Move." "No." Matt patted the space between himself and Deontic. "Get in." "Why do you always have to be on the end?" "Why do you?" Mello sighed and sat in an armchair to remove his boots. He glared at Matt, but his husband remained unmoved. Mello gave up on him and contemplated having to go to bed in his leather trousers. He didn't own any pyjamas, and anyway, he had the feeling he might want to be in a position to get up suddenly. "Are you still in your jeans?" he asked Matt. The redhead nodded. Mello sighed and looked at Sentry. It was impossible to tell through the quilts, though he was still wearing his T-shirt. Mello did not want to inquire about the state of Sentry's undress. Mello grimaced and simply unzipped and took off his leather top. He pulled off his socks, stuffing them into his boots, and then stepped over Matt into the vacant space. It felt good to be lying down. Sentry chuckled. "I can't believe that you just said you're a raving queen." "What?" Mello kept the lightness in his tone. "You thought I was straight?" "Well, no, but..." Sentry put his head back down on the pillow and lay there smiling. Mello lay back, staring up at the ceiling. Beside him, Matt was still fiddling with the laptop. All of the lights were on, and he doubted that anyone would actually sleep. He kept seeing the face of the ghost seared into his mind's eye. He turned his face to smile at Deontic. She was staring right back, her eyes owlish behind the glasses that were still on. "You were right about the oppressive atmosphere in this house. I've never seen you cry before. Well, not like that anyway. I've never seen Sentry freak like that either." He left unstated the fact that they had never seen him panic so much, teetering on the edge of sanity. Any one of these events would have been a feast day for the other children when they were growing up. It had cost them all a lot in self-esteem to display it now. "We really must be on the edge." Deontic shook her head. "We're all trained to be on the edge. It's more. It's something's got under our skin and it's probing." "Huh?" "Think about it," Deontic urged him. "If anyone can survive oppressive atmospheres intact, it's us four. The institution saw to that." "You're suggesting that some entity in this house is inside our minds?" Mello frowned. Deontic bit her lip, looking close to tears again. "I don't know what I'm suggesting." "It makes a weird kind of sense," Mello conceded. Sentry blinked. "I don't want to think of a ghost in my head." Mello let his hands slide down over the back of Matt's thigh. The haunting does seem very psychological. He thought about the album that was recorded here, and the music certainly plays with people's psyches. He glanced up at Matt. "What are you doing?" "I'm trying to find out where the camera was taken. According to this, it's still in the room recording, but there's no record of us ever entering it, let alone the ghost." "Oh, Matt, just leave it." Mello knew he was exhausted underneath the adrenaline. "Lie down." He slid his fingers between Matt's legs, though he felt only denim. Matt gave him a sharp look and Mello smirked. "Lie down." Sentry spoke up from the settee, peering across at them. "Mello, you believe in God, is it?" Mello moved his hand. "Yep." "Say a prayer over us there, protection." "Do you believe?" "No, but you do, and it might help." Mello rolled his eyes, but Deontic was still looking drained beside him, so Mello hit back a retort. "I'll do it when Matt lies down." He'd meant it as a stalling device. Prayer felt too personal, something that would be another vulnerability to be aired before these people. People whom he had spent most of his life attempting to divert from his true self. But Matt immediately pushed the laptop back, put out his cigarette and snuggled down under the quilt. As an afterthought, he took off his goggles and pushed them under the pillow. Further down the line, Deontic placed her glasses carefully underneath the settee. Mello felt a little trapped by this, but he found Matt's hand and held it, and then did the same with Deontic. They evidently thought it was a Catholic thing rather than comfort, because Deontic turned onto her back and reached up to hold Sentry's hand. "Our Father, who art in heaven." "Properly, Mello," Matt muttered. Mello glanced sharply at him. "It's for our protection." "It's not the words, it's the feeling behind it, noob," Mello informed him. "Then put some feeling behind it." Mello sighed. He made to protest and then recalled that they all knew that he was Yugoslavian. It had been admitted in that meeting at Whammy's house last year. He concluded he had nothing to lose from speaking his native language. Oh, crap. "Okanese, kojo jesi de nebanesa." I'm sorry, I can't. I've got no idea what I'm saying here, but he basically starts to say the Lord's Prayer in Yugoslavian, or even Croatian. Joveci. That was the last thing that Mello remembered saying before he opened his eyes into a room with sunlight pouring down into it and an incessant beeping noise disturbing the peace. Mello lifted his head towards the source. It was Sentry's laptop displaying in Old English font C against a white background. Huh? There was movement behind him. It was Sentry blearily rising from the settee and flashing his Calvin Kleins as he padded across to answer it. Deontic was also raising her head, yawning. Her hair was matted on one side where she'd been lying. "Morning, Sentry. Morning, Chrissy." Sentry spoke as he put on his headset, as he hurriedly put on his headset. "No, still here. You woke me up." Mello was staring at Matt, who was only now opening eyes, dazed with sleep. He was bunched up into a fetal position, wrapped up in Mello's arms. Mello's leg, its knee drawn up, curled around and behind Matt's back. For someone who was uncomfortable being cuddled and swore in the name of Super Mario that he couldn't sleep without being cocooned, Matt had evidently slept last night. "Morning, guapo." Mello smiled, resolving that their sleeping arrangements were going to undergo some drastic changes when they got home. Started with Matt actually removing that quilted barrier between them. Matt just looked stunned, but he always did first thing. "Been in bed with the others?" Sentry laughed at Chrissy's response. It was irritating hearing only one side of a conversation. "Oh no, it's haunted all right. Really..." He paused and then looked at the others. "It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon." Mello had been loath to release Matt now he had him like this, but he twisted his head back, craning to read the clock on the laptop's toolbar. It was 2 o'clock. He had never slept in like this. He hadn't expected to sleep at all. Beside him, Deontic sat bolt upright. "How is it 2 o'clock?" she demanded. "It doesn't matter what time I go to bed. I always wake up at 6 a.m. Always." Despite the lifting of the intense atmosphere in the house, Mello felt uneasy. Matt was already waking enough to unfurl his hand, reaching out to grasp his cigarettes. He was still wearing his gloves. Mello turned onto his front and took in all of the camera feeds. They had all lain here vulnerable and exposed for 11 hours. The house appeared intact. Mello scrambled onto his feet and stepped over Matt just for the fact of being up. His mind kept replaying Deontic's assertion from last night that something in the house was inside their minds. He picked up a chocolate bar and he took a bite while he surveyed the scenes. How had he slept in these conditions? His trousers were chafing. Mello strode across the sentry's side. "Let me speak with Chrissy." He held his hand out for the handset. Sentry looked at him with disdain but spoke into the microphone. "Chrissy, Mello is beside me. He wants a word." He scratched his chin with its faint shadow of hair just underneath the skin. "Don't know." Mello wriggled his hands to hurry Sentry up and the teenager removed his headset. Yeah, you go." Mello purred on. "Chrissy." "Mello?" The signal was faint, but he could hear her clearly enough. "This is important. You've just had a minute or two speaking with Sentry. Is there anything odd about him?" Mello hadn't thought how to phrase the question before he'd asked it. "Something abnormal, I mean. Has he changed since being here?" Chrissy hesitated. "No, not really. Why?" "Just a hunch." Mello stared at Matt. He seemed exactly as Mello would expect upon waking. "Something is wrong and I don't know what. There have been a few things off affecting our personalities. Chrissy, in all the years that Sentry has been living with you, have you ever seen him go hysterical?" Chrissy's tone became glacial. "Why would Sentry become hysterical?" "Say if there was a gun pointed at his head." There was a beat, and then Chrissy screamed in his ear. "You sadistic, incompetent bastard, Mello! How fucking dare you even contemplate that? I don't know why I bothered to think any better than you. I've always been a—" Deontic cried. Mello interjected. "And I thought I was going mad, and our sleeping patterns are different. At least 3 of us have slept in a way that we wouldn't normally. Chrissy, am I different?" She was quietly seething at the other end of the line. He could hear her breathing. "You really want me to answer that, Mello?" She snorted her frustration. "You really are the limit. Hal assured me that you're changed. She told me that you would treat Sentry with all due courtesy, and I should have gone with my instinct. I've known you longer than her. But no, I thought back to how you were when Matt was abducted, and I dared to think that you'd found a shred of humanity in that black and twisted heart of yours. Oh, go to fucking hell, Mello." Her thoughts obviously caught up with her rant. "But get Sentry onto a train first. I want him home." Mello stared at Sentry and tried to work out why he had pulled a gun on him. It felt rational at the time. It was supposed to get him to confront his fear. Now it just seemed bloody stupid. Mello replied quietly. "I'll ask Deontic to take him." "Yes, you do that," Chrissy spat, and then added, "Why is Deontic there?" Mello blinked. "Because you sent her to look after Sentry." "Deontic!" Chrissy gaped. "Why the fuck would I send Deontic? What's she going to do? Philosophise you out of hurting him?" Mello watched Deontic grab a handbag and flee to the small toilet through the kitchen. "Can you believe that I actually trusted you? I should have sent Salvo, but we discussed it and decided, no, you can be trusted. Salvo spoke up for you." Many thoughts were going through Mello's head, not least the barbs coming from Chrissy's mouth. He tried to prioritise them as he watched Matt traipse off into the kitchen, probably in search of caffeine. Mello replied more meekly than he felt. "I'm sorry, but please don't judge me at this moment. I think there's something going on here that I need to work out." "Don't judge you!" Chrissy returned shrill. "Chrissy, I need to ask you to do something." Mello removed a ragged strip of chocolate from one side of his mouth to the other. He wondered if it would be better to ask this of Hal instead. "I'm going to, or one of us is going to contact you once an hour on the hour. It might be a text or it might be an email." He considered it. "I'll open a messenger. Once an hour someone will type in anything just to let you know that we're good. If it gets to 5 past and you've not received any communication at all, please act." Chrissy fell silent, and the interim before she spoke felt loaded. Act? Mello knew that he would need a sledgehammer He would need a sledgehammer statement to break through her defences. Call the air ambulance, probably. He heard her intake a breath. And in the meantime, I will get Deontic and Sentry out of here. I'll ask Dee to take Sentry to the station after I find out what the hell she's doing here. And would you watch our backs for just myself and Matt? What's happening there, Mello? As I said, I don't know. But you're not here and that makes you insurance. Mello bit through the chocolate melting in his mouth and chewed it. Will you help me, Chrissy? Send the case file, Mello. No. Mello took another bite. It's my case. Will you do it? Bastard, she snarled, and then snapped with all grace. Yes, I'll do it. Her voice dropped again. But keep everyone safe, Mello, and that is a threat. Mello nodded. I understand. Thank you, Chrissy. Welcome Rooney Bear, who's just come into the chat while I was reading that. Just have a quick drag on my flag before I read the next chapter. Alright, in the interim, Orange Punch has gone off on her very last day of work, so a belated goodbye to Orange Punch. Rooney Bear has arrived, and there's still Alex in there. And Alex is saying that she likes Chrissy because she's like a tiny Anne. Right, the next chapter is chapter 18, Interlude. And incidentally, it is currently nearly 5:20 British time, so I think this is the chapter where we actually do catch up with the exact date and time as it's happening in the story. "3 p.m. and all is well," Matt typed into the messenger, which had been opened on one of his laptops. Matt heard Mello race into the room behind him to where Deontic was just picking up the last of her bedding and Sentry was making a flask of tea for the journey. Mello pointed excitedly towards the door. Mr. Roberts is up in the mountain, coming this way." His gaze stuck in the mattress still on the floor. "Don't let me come in here." Sentry knew his cue. He hurried past Mello, trailing the other three behind him. Mr. Roberts was quite far up the slope, so Sentry raced around the stables to meet him. They heard Sentry call out, "Smee, bitter an aras I mach. Dydw I dysgu hanes at ti." The rest was lost to the wind. Matt could tell that Mello was anxious to be up there despite not speaking the language. There was a certain restlessness about him, beyond the usual hyperactivity of his husband. It was probably due to having to relinquish control over his own case for a few minutes. There was also possibly annoyance at finding a language he couldn't speak. Matt moved beside the Slav. "Let him do it, Mel. This is partly the reason we got him down here." Beside them, Deontic had the boot of the BMW open, and her folded quilt was stuffed into it. Matt glanced to ensure that she was watching and then pecked a kiss onto Mello's cheek. "Love you." He stated it in a language they could all understand, specifically one that Deontic knew. Mello surveyed him carefully. "Ah," he nodded. "It has got to you too. I've been wondering because you've been so closed down it's hard to see inside. Your responses aren't normal for you in fear or anxiety, but that's largely the point." "Huh?" "For a start, you've been doing a lot of ordering me around." Mello kept his eyes fixed on the animated conversation happening on the slope above them. Occasional words and phrases were snatched by the wind and carried down to them. They meant nothing to any of the trio listening. "Cuddling me, kissing me, telling me you love me. It's all very nice but very out of character for you, Carino." "Oh." Matt cast an anxious glance at Deontic, but she was unreadable. It was as if daylight had reinstated them to themselves. "It's not that out of character?" Mello snorted and gave him a look which said it all. Matt cringed inwardly. Deontic must have seen that too. 3:18 p.m. and Sentry was back off up the mountain, bustling inside after a cup of tea. He'd made sure that the caretaker hadn't followed them down. They all congregated back around the kitchen table, perched on uncomfortable wooden stools. "He's not sure if he's employed here anymore," Sentry informed them. "He used to get a small dividend off the Plothros for keeping an eye on the place, but they laid him off. But they laid him off as it was sold to us. Mr. Prothero said he's put in a word, but Mr. Roberts hasn't heard anything yet." "But he's still got a key?" Mello asked needlessly, as the man had to have been inside the house in order to leave them a cake. "Yeah, but the Protheros never came up here to take it off him. He's been looking after the place until he knows what's what." Sentry unwrapped a lollipop and shoved it into his mouth. The ball of it bulged in his cheek. "It said that we'd probably still need him, but I'd have to speak to my parents about it. I let him believe that I was the son of the new family here." Deontic poured water into their mugs. "It's not much of a lie. You are in a manner of speaking." Mello was impatient with the turn of this conversation. "Did he say anything about the haunting?" The Sentry nodded. "Just get into that." "Never anything in all his life. I asked him about the servant that you told me about, and he just laughed. He said his nine had told him that the woman who saw that servant was a bit tapped in the head, see. He didn't think there was a ghost at all. Oh, disappointed I was, and I said so. So here we are with a nice house in Sayakeredigion. Finally made it in the world, and not even Motchinas to bolster our name, is it?" Sentry paused for dramatic effect. His face changed. "There's a multinos?" Mello demanded. "You get Motchinas?" Sentry sniffed. "There's just the one everywhere." Mello spelt it out as if he was talking to an idiot. "Is there a legend of one here?" "Not historically, no." Sentry sucked on his lollipop, not looking at Mello. "But there was talk after what happened with the band. Most people around here just think they were on drugs and did each other in. But there are a few of the old ones are talking about Grachireben. I asked them why, because that bit about the idiot woman isn't common knowledge, was it, Mello?" "No." "Well, he told me it was the injuries. Covered in scratches he was down by the river." Sentry took his tea as Deontic passed it over. "Thank you, Dee. Sorry, I was making that, wasn't I?" Deontic gestured him to carry on with his report. "It's okay." Sentry nodded, but that wasn't the biggie. "Hold on." Mello raised his head. "Why would scratches indicate say it again." Sentry emphasised it phonetically. Grachireben. Grachireben. He waited for Mello to repeat it to him several times. "Da iawn. Grachireben does attack according to some legends. She flies down onto them and claws them with her talons and pecks them." "Pecks?" Sentry looked uncertain. "With her teeth, perhaps?" His eyes flickered momentarily with self-irritation at his lack of knowledge on the fine detail. Matt reached for the nearest laptop and searched for the entity. He had no idea how to spell it, but he gave it his best shot. Google corrected him and sent him a list of links to follow. He read about her corpse-like features and bat wings. He found a story of a man in the 19th century who'd slept in the ruins of Pennard Castle and been left for dead by the being. It had mauled him with claws like an eagle's. He searched Pennard Castle and found it was in the Gower. He picked up a map of Wales. Gower was miles away. In the meantime, Sentry was going on. "Since then, Mr. Roberts has sometimes seen lights in the air at night. They hear voices and music sometimes, and screams. He's on his final warning with the police because he calls them up, and by the time of year it's all quiet again. Mrs. Roberts has stopped him going up at the mountain after dark because it was becoming a bit of an obsession. There was a bit of a period when him and a couple of men from the tavern would come down here to investigate, but they never did find anyone here. They thought it was kids at first breaking in, see. But the doors, they were always locked." Sentry had all of their attention now. "Mrs. Roberts came in here one day to find all the furniture pushed back in the room through there, like it had been when the album was recorded. There's a woman down in the village swears she saw the devil rise out the roof, but Mr. Roberts, he says that Mrs. Price is like that and to take no notice. Oh, and there was a bloke night fishing down by the river, looked up and saw someone on the roof, had his hand on his heart saying it was Jean Prothero." "So?" Mello fixed his gaze onto him. In short, the house has gained a bit of a reputation of late. Mr. Roberts, it described the band, said they wore black and had satanic symbols on them. Matt interrupted. It says here that the Guaci ribbon only comes to people with pure blood Welsh. She's not interested in newcomers. We're safe then. Sentry's mouth opened and closed. Mello frowned. Why would she attack a Swede then? Sentry replied, annoyed. I don't know. Find her and interview her next, is it? Perhaps she only came for Ewan and the others got in her way. Deontic picked up an invisible lint on her dress. Are you really staying another night, Mello? Yeah, he replied, though he looked pensive about it. "3:51 p.m. Mello closed the gate behind the BMW and leaned on it to wave Deontic and Sentry away. He waited to ensure that they had gone and then strode back to the driveway to where Matt was leaning against his own car. Matt hadn't wanted to come outside. Mello had insisted solely because he didn't want his husband in that house alone. Hey. Matt watched Mello come close enough to gather him into his arms. They embraced and kissed long and deeply. So, Mello pushed away. Why was Deontic here? Matt shrugged. Apparently sent by Hal to ambush Sentry. He gestured in the direction of the car that had gone, probably bending his ear as we speak. He debated telling him the other reason, but what Mello didn't know, he couldn't hurt him. Mello smiled. So Chrissy does trust me then? 4 p.m. and all is well, Matt typed, and then added, C&D left 10 minutes ago. The response was immediate. Good. Matt ignored her and turned again to where Mello was checking his emails. He'd asked Jürgen Ostrom for photographs of the band, as the internet appeared woefully lacking in them. Any reply? Mello shook his head. No, nothing. He sat back chewing on his chocolate. I've got one from an Oleg Korosuk, apparently from the Ukrainian NUNS. I've been recommended by the Polish government for a case. Forward it to me, Matt replied airily, but Mello's delight was infectious and he had to smile. Well done. Gracias. Mello rose and hugged Matt from behind, where he sat in his chair. Reckon that Neil has broken into Ukraine? Matt sniffed. I neither know or care. He opened his emails, looking for one off Mello. Have I forwarded it to you yet? Mello shook his head, leaning in to kiss along Matt's jugular. Matt tilted his head back to allow Mello better access. His neck was being sucked, and there would be a love bite. Matt's cock twitched in his jeans. There was an email from Silver, one of his colleagues in the Elite Hackers Consortium. He opened it to distract himself from Mello's mauling. Mel, Silver says there are 3 different versions of the album on the internet. What? Mello straightened, and the loss of him was unwelcome. Which one have we got? He read the email over Matt's shoulder. So only one kills? He doesn't say that. It's obvious, Mello frowned. Get all 3 mile. He stepped back, nibbling on his chocolate as he considered this new development. Are they 3 mixes of the same recording, or 3 separate recordings? Matt frowned. How should I know? I've only just found out that there are 3. Wouldn't Jürgen Ostrom know? He was the one who made them available to the world in the first place. Mello nodded. I'll email him. He crossed to his own laptop and there was a short silence, interspersed with typing, as Mello contacted the Swede. He sat back, thoughtfully staring at Matt. What? Are you okay? Mello asked gently. Matt shrugged. There had been moments when he had been shaken, but there was nothing that going home wouldn't solve. He nodded. Mello's eyebrow ridge rose and he momentarily looked away. I know you, Mile. There's this big wellspring of emotion inside you that you don't always acknowledge yourself. We both know that it can go wrong. We've both been there. I was convinced last night that Deontic was going there too. Matt raised his head to survey his husband. Didn't we conclude that only the best people go mad? And then afterwards they can survive anything because the worst has already happened, and they know that they can survive it. Deontic isn't going to go mad. She probably just had PMT or something. Mello laughed. Yeah. Matt contemplated telling Mello what he'd learned, that Deontic hadn't been here to watch over Sentry. She'd been sent as a spy by Hal to evaluate Matt's well-being. Mello was staring pensively at the door into the sitting room, though his mind evidently lost in turning over the case. Matt figured that such information would just stress Mello out and perhaps hinder his friendship with Hal. In Matt's opinion, Hal could sometimes be a useful ally in getting information through Mello's insecurities and paranoia. She was worth retaining. Why does it matter if they're remixes or separate recordings? Mello's attention snapped back towards him. Because the latter implies that they're recorded at different times. I think we've been listening to a safe version, hence not suicidal. His shoulder rose in a half-shrug. And maybe the dangerous copy is a little more rare. Matt shook his head. They're all apparently freely available on the internet. My guess is the dodgy copy has worse sound quality or something. It gets fewer good reviews and therefore more people tend to go for the other versions. He was still searching for it, was turning over the Deontic issue. He concluded that it really didn't matter that Mello knew. If Deontic was still here, then fine. Matt had been following his own agenda. He'd been showing the woman that he could look after himself, and that might have been translated by Mello as a lost control over his husband, but the blonde wasn't freaking out over it. He was all right, and Deontic was gone. I've asked Silver to look for the other two versions too. They found about 20, but they're probably just the same one being renamed by different people. Thanks, Mile. "4:37 p.m. and the footsteps started on the floor above. Mello and Matt both froze, looking upwards. It sounded like more than one person this time. They both inspected the rows of camera feeds, compressed to just 2 laptops as they'd been using the others. Though they displayed 90% of the area, including the room directly above them, there was nothing to see. Each room remained unpopulated with no apparent cause for the sounds that they could both clearly hear. It grated on their nerves and they could do nothing else but listen. "So it's a ghost," Mello stated redundantly through the noise of it. "The band recorded here because of a ghost. But that might have just been Johan Prothero wanting to show off his beautiful house. They haven't come here and got more than they bargained for. The house has been reputedly supernaturally active since. How did it go from one state to the other? They did something while they were here." Matt considered it. Robert said that they wore satanic symbols. Oh, that could have been anything. He's an old man, it could have been fashion. Mello nevertheless touched the rosary around his neck. He dashed back to his laptop and typed another email to Yogan Ashram, asking if his cousin had been involved in devil worship or witchcraft. He hoped he'd couched it in diplomatic enough language. The footsteps went on. "5 p.m. and we're mostly well, bit of banging upstairs," Matt wrote. The response came back a minute later. "Good luck, need anything?" Matt got the feeling it was salvo this time. "No, thank you," he typed and sent it. 5:08 p.m. Mello found a bowl in one of the cupboards and filled it with water from the tap. He was dangling his rosary into it, the crucifix at the end dragged back and forth through the water. "Uima uka ensena adua stravelka." Matt's stomach grumbled. "Why are you making that into holy water?" "To bless the house." The footsteps still sounded overhead. They'd not gone on for so long last night. If they did do a satanic ritual in here and opened up a spiritual door to something malignant, then claiming it back won't hurt. "So you're going to sprinkle water all over the place?" Matt stated. It was not a question. Mello nodded. "Yes." "Nowhere near my equipment, please." Mello smirked. He turned away from his bowl, looking not at all in a state of grace. "I thought we'd already established that you're mine, and therefore I can do whatever I like with your equipment." Matt coloured slightly, a friction of need passing through him. "Well, yeah, but I draw the line at you saturating electrical stuff with water." "Credit me with a bit of sense, Smile." 5:17 p.m. and Matt was trailing behind Mello, carrying a bowl of water through a house suddenly silent but dense with expectation. It had almost been worse when the footsteps stopped than when they'd still been running overhead. It implied that whomever or whatever had caused them was now standing still. Mello had his rosary wrapped around his hand while the other clutched the figurine of Mother Mary. The effect was tempered somewhat by the fact that Mello swaggered like a street thug drunk on testosterone. Mello entered each room, never hesitating for fear of not having the courage to open the door, and then he stood in its centre. Matt moved before the camera tripods where they were present, so that any holy water would hit him rather than it. Mello reached back with his rosary enshrouded hand and dipped gloves fingered into the bowls. "Unocker and discor and duhasavacha, body blogavachio," he stated with gusto, making the sign of the cross with water flying off his sodden gloves. And then he walked along each wall, sprinkling water over the carpet and skirting boards, stopping only at the windows to bless them too. Matt strongly suspected that Mello was making this up as he went along, but it was Catholic stuff, and so he let him get on with it. To be fair, the house did feel much calmer afterwards. Mello also felt much happier for having done another thorough search of it. Happier still when it was over and they were back in the kitchen. Apologies to anyone who speaks Croatian. 5:52 p.m. Matt had boiled them both a couple of eggs with toasted bread to dip into the yolk. They sat at the kitchen table to eat them as a ping sounded from one of the laptops. Matt investigated. "Woot! I've got another of the versions of the album." "Took you long enough," Mello replied. "What's the use in being married to a geek when it takes you how many hours to download music?" Matt bristled inwardly, but outwardly he remained calm. "I had to find it first. Then I got caught up in your blessing rites and cooked food." Mello grinned. "Thank you for finding the album, Mile." "De nada." He noticed that neither of them were precisely rushing to listen to it. On further reflection, he decided he really didn't want to. "Still looking for the third." "Thanks." Mello munched through a spoonful of egg, reading about Gocherubin on the internet. Upstairs there was a sudden series of crashes and every camera feed went dead. Oh, fuck. Matt had just taken a bite of toast. It rested as half-chewed cardboard on his tongue. 6:04 p.m. Mello rushed to the laptop to type, Sorry, we're here. All of the laptop feeds were pulled out and we've been upstairs putting them back in." He had no idea why he'd just typed all of that to Chrissy and Salvo. It had to be the adrenaline. He sent it anyway and careered back into the sitting room. Matt was in there reconnecting the camera too. One by one, all the feeds came back online. 6:43 p.m. and they just sat down to contemplate cold egg and soldiers when they heard a vehicle arriving in the yard. Mello checked the time. "Thank you, Hal." Only 3 hours between request and delivery. Matt followed him out and then took over checking all of the extra cameras, tripods, heat sensors, EMF meters, EVP recorders and the ion counters. Mello took custody of the box full of chocolate bars instead. Along with the courier, they conveyed all of the boxes inside before signing of them. Matt looked down at them with a mixture of glee and deflation. Now they would have to walk all over the house for a third time setting it all up. He needed food before he did any of that. 6:54 p.m. Matt looked up from his investigation of the pantry, having already eaten several pieces of barabrich. It sounded as if the courier was back. Mello's chair scraped back as he rose to look. "What?" Mello exclaimed, and so Matt ran to the kitchen to see. It was Deontic's car, and both she and Sentry were climbing out of it. "Why are they back?" "They're after the kudos. It's my case." "I don't know, but I hope they bought pizza," Matt replied hopefully. They did have carrier bags and a large blow-up mattress. Deontic eyed Mello with an expression of resignation. "We discussed it and we just couldn't leave you here. I've booked for what passes for Cantonese food in Aberystwyth." Matt grinned at her and held the door open for her to bring the food inside. He wasn't sure how he felt about their return, but he was very certain about his feelings towards the takeaway. Sentry followed. "I bought the books on the local legends of folklore. I've been asking around in the shops. We found a woman in the cafe on the seafront whose auntie lives this way on. She says she's heard the music and howling in the night too." "Anything new to add?" Mello asked. "Only that we found someone whose friend committed suicide after a year in the album." Oh, good, Mello smiled. Can we have a copy of that version? 7 p.m, Matt typed. C&D are back, sorry. The only response was the ringing of Sentry's phone half a minute later. Matt let him deal with Chrissy. He had food. That's the end of that chapter. Why, oh why do I write so much in Croatian when I don't even speak the language? Why, oh why have I got so much in Swedish in here when I don't speak the language? Remind me next time to only write these chapters in English and Welsh. In the chat room at the moment, we've got Rooney Bear laughing. We've got Brooke Stardust saying, suddenly the gang gets my sleeping habits. Oh, sorry, that was for the chapter before. Also commenting, oh my gosh, it's the hard to spell Welsh ghosty thing. Scared, shocked face. It's not hard to spell at all. Glachyrybyn. Hag of the Morrigan. Glachyrybyn. Or Witch of the Morrigan. Glachsbeth, Rich Adams Hag. Brooke Stardust also saying priorities for Matt. Food, yes. And it could be Swedish. No idea what that related to. Possibly me trying to speak Croatian. I just went on the basis that I can't speak it. I might as well get something that sounds vaguely like it could be Croatian unless you actually spoke Croatian. Brooke Stardust is also laughing and saying that when she gets a DeLorean, she'll be sure to go back and tell me off from the Swedish and Croatian. Oh, why you shout? Right, the next chapter is chapter 19, Clues and Conjecture. Oh, and also apologies for my Welsh accent today. It's just totally gone to pot. I don't know what's going on there. Normally I can do the Welsh and that's about it. So yeah, Clues and Conjecture. Shit, that's her, Mello commented, standing beside the kitchen table and staring at his laptop. He'd only meant to be passing through, but the size of the computer had reminded him about his emails. Deontit looked at him. She'd been sitting alone in there trying to find patterns of their socio-emotional responses whisked in the house. I've had an email from my contact in Sweden, the one who knew the band. He sent me a picture of them. He waited until she slipped off the stool and came to see. That's the ghost I saw on the floor above. Maja Gustafsson. She was the singer. Deontik stared at it. Well, they are all wearing a lot of black. Were they aiming for the gothic look? Or just to seem a little... She faltered, her gaze passing from the screen to Mello himself. He was a man who was usually clad in black. Maybe they just like the colour. Mello's expression remained deadpan. Are you positive that that's her? Mello rested his hands on the table, leaning in closer. Yes, positive. Matt could pick her out of a line-up if you wanted the evidence. I believe you. Deontik moved away from him, walking along the length of the table to inspect the camera feeds again. The laptops had been moved into the kitchen and she was in charge of them while the three companions laid lengths of cable. By the time they were finished, Matt had promised that nothing could move in this house, from this world or the next, without something picking it up. She paused by the sight of Matt and Sentry working on the top floor. They had reopened the attic door. Mello was planning on fixing cameras and sensors up on the roof itself. So our ghost is the singer from the band. She considered it. Did she have something particular against your goddess? My what? Mello followed her gaze towards his figurine of Mother Mary. Oh! He gestured in patience and returned to his email. Not remixes, right? He skim-read over and returned to the beginning to read it properly. Just reading this. There was a pause. Yeah, they had an interest in the occult. Low-level stuff, though they had been messing around with the Ouija boards. Nothing very organised, though. He denies actual devil worship. Mello picked up his chocolate and mused on the new information. 2 of them came out of the Swedish Bible Belt. Sweden has a Bible Belt? Deontic leaned back to check some footage, but it was only shadow. Are you sure? I thought it was a very secular country. Mello nodded. It's hardly at the level of the Bible Belt in the USA, but nevertheless it exists. Which meant that Jan and Rasmus' exposure to the hereafter was probably primarily Christian. And we can say the same about the 2 Welshmen. The woman came from nearer to Stockholm. You're a Christian yourself. Your thoughts pass more quickly to Christianity than any other belief system. Mello's eyes flickered in her direction. I'm corrupting my interpretation of the evidence with my personal bias. Deontic gave him a long, hard look. No. Your reasoning's actually sound. Carry on. My theory is... Mello. Deontic stared at him across the table, and Mello's heart leapt. No, there's nothing behind you. I just wanted to say that your reasoning generally is sound. You have an amazing brain. It's always impressed me. If the marking procedures at Wemmer House had not been so flawed, you would have beaten near more often. I apologise if I ever made you feel like second best. That speech delivered, she'd returned to surveying the screens, though she was watching him still. Mello looked suddenly a lot younger and smaller. A coy smile played upon his face. Deontic took all of this in. This had been what Matt had wanted her to work out. Mello seemed to remember himself, and his eyes hardened again. She noted it and asked, "What is your theory?" Mello smiled at her, though his gaze was tinged with suspicion now. That was really nice of you to say that. Thank you. Your theory? Yeah. He stood back, collecting his thoughts together again. Consider their thought processes. They want something mysterious and dark, but they're fundamentally immature. How do we know that? I'm basing it on their ages. They're our age, more or less. Mello shrugged. We're immature. Deontic gave a half shrug. Some of us are. Mello ignored her. Jon Prothero's family is rich. They have property all over South and West Wales, as well as a townhouse in London and a holiday home in Marbella. They have this old manor house up in the Cambrian Mountains, which, of course, the family don't live in. They're down in Cardiff, where the action is. Johan's out to impress, so he spins up a good story, enough to entice 3 Swedes across the sea into this desolate hole. He raised a gloved finger, but nothing happened. It's not nearly as haunted as he makes out. It has its atmosphere and its elements, but it remains completely supernaturally boring. They're all young, they're in a band, a death metal band. They're used to Cardiff and Stockholm and Edinburgh, big cities. So what are they doing here in the countryside? You look out that window, and all you've got is rural land. Young people tend to go a bit stir-crazy. I've seen it. Holed up in some of the dives that I was in. You'd have had young Turks flying for miles just for a night out. You're making a lot of suppositions, but nothing which I can test so far. Thank you. Mello paced along the kitchen. So they need to make their own entertainment. Maybe there were drugs involved, maybe alcohol. I haven't heard that they were teetotal, and Mr. Roberts certainly thought that they were on drugs. Unfounded allegations. They look fashionable within their genre, and this was outside his worldview. He naturally assumed drugs. Mello gestured that it didn't matter. They have an interest in the occult, that's why they're here. They wanted to make an album in a haunted house, so they came looking for supernatural adventure. They have a history of dabbling in things like Ouija boards. They probably did something, a ritual, a rite, something that opens up the spiritual airwaves to all comers. He paced along the lines of laptops and stood beside Deontic. Why is that room unfurnished? The one that Mayo walked into. All of the others have furniture. The family sold it wholesale after they'd moved their personal effects. He paused. Yeah, probably the valuable antiques too. But we've got an historian with us, and he's been oohing and ahhing over stuff. But he hasn't once picked something up and had us rush into Sotheby's, has he? Deontic touched the screens, pointing at the rooms on either side of the empty ones. They were both bedrooms. It makes sense that this was one too. You wouldn't put a storage room there, would you? They exchanged glances. So the furniture in there was either damaged or valuable antiques? Yeah, but they even took the carpet. Mello grinned smugly, which airs towards damage. All of the other rooms have the same fitted carpet. It's been cut away at the threshold of the door here. His earpiece crackled into life and Mello pulled the microphone down. Yes, Matt? What are you doing down there? Solving the case. Why? Matt's tone held a note of reproach. Sentry and I have finished this floor. Do you want us to carry on to the attic, or did you want to be there for that one? Mello hesitated. Anything happening up there? Yeah, Matt replied bluntly. Sentry and I are doing all the work while you skive off. Mello laughed. Sorry, Matt. I'll be up there soon. Just let me work this out. It's all coming together in my mind. No problem. Come down for a tea break. There was some muffled conversation. Matt had to be holding the little microphone inside his hand. He let go to speak again. No, we're going to finish the attic so that when we come down it'll be for good. Mello was torn between going and staying. He opted for the latter. I'll be up there in 5 minutes. Carry on. The static stopped. Matt had switched the microphone off his end. Ouch. I'm not in his good books. Deontic wasn't interested in that. She had maximised the footage from the room in question. It was the same carpet. You can see here where it's had the same carpet cutters on it. The rest of the house has the edges neatly fitted, but that's rough. I concur that the carpet was damaged. She drummed her fingers over the laptop. None of them actually died in the house. Ewan fell from the roof, but the others were clear of the house completely. That was not therefore a crime scene. Was it not? Mello stepped back, animated. We know where their bodies were found, but not where they died. Though forensics did say that Jan Peterson died where he lay. So why are they so scattered? Deontic asked. 3 different places. OK, the other 2 fled in a car, but the first 3 must have fled too. Mello gasped. Ewan went upstairs. Maya and Jan ran towards the river. Rasmus and Michael... Michael. Sorry, yes. Mello laughed. A smile flickered across Deontic's lips, and Mello laughed even more. It's a common enough name. She nodded. Is it reasonable to suppose that their starting point, if they were all together, was the house? Were they chased? Why do you say that? Deontic held out her hands, palms upwards, like she was trying to gauge the weight of something in the air. Their running patterns seem off. Right now, if something happened to make you and I want to flee, would we go in different directions? Yeah, Mello replied, because I would go upstairs and get my man, and you would probably run to the car. He rushed back to his own laptop, where a photograph of the band was still displayed. Jan and Maya were a couple. They would have run off together. Rasmus was not only a fellow Swede, which implied solidarity, but he's also Jan's friend. He would have gone with them. I expect Ewan and Michael to have gravitated towards one another too, because they're both Welsh and also friends. That said, Ewan and Jan are friends too from university. He stared at the screen, trying to define knowledge from their eyes. The solution felt so close that he could almost taste it. He raised his chocolate and held a corner of it between his teeth. His reward for solving this would be a bite. The sudden rat-a-tat of running feet up above took them by surprise. Mello bit into his chocolate out of sheer shock. Deontic's hands covered her mouth, but she looked to the screams first. Through instinct would have had her raise her eyes to the ceiling. I don't see anything, she stated, cool professionalism keeping the fear from her tone. Mother of God, he's cut us off. What? Mello started running towards the inner door. It's between me and Matt. Deontic realised that she was being left alone in here. She hurried after Mello, but he was much faster than she was. She pulled down the microphone on her own headset as she ran. Sentry and Matt, are you reading me? Yeah, they both said at once. Sentry continued. We can hear it. It's on the floor below. No. Deontic had reached the top of the first staircase. It was all around her, and Mello had already run through it. She glimpsed him heading towards the enclosed second staircase. Deontic huddled into herself, closed her eyes to mere slits, and took after him. It's here. It's on my floor. There were awed whispers. A short expletive from Matt, and Sentry whispered, There's somebody coming up the ladder. It's Mello, Deontic assured him. She felt the chi so strongly here, as if she ran alongside someone. It was icy cold. Keep talking to me. It's not Mello, Sentry breathed. Dwee! Matt interjected. This is Mello now. Mello's with us, Dee. Deontic reached the top landing close to tears, a rushing sensation all around her. and the footsteps loud in her ears. A figure leapt down from the attic and she nearly screamed, but it was Sentry. He gasped out something like, "Something came up just before Mello did. Someone ran straight past us and went straight out onto the roof." Deontic held onto his arms, and she didn't care whether that looked like comfort for herself or him. "Why are we standing in the middle of this?" She scrambled up the ladder with Sentry right behind her. She was expecting to find that Mello was already on the roof in pursuit of whatever ghost was streaming past them. She had her reprimand all ready to yell at him. It startled her, therefore, into a shriek to find Mello still standing there, his hands cupping Matt's chin. "I told you," Mello was saying, low enough to be private but emphatic enough that his words carried to those arriving. "I will always come for you, Mile. I will never leave you anywhere. I will always come for you." Matt's gloved hands rose beyond Mello's back, palms flat against it. In the slipstream of all that infernal noise and the still racing footsteps echoing in endless repetition across the floor, Matt and Mello kissed. As terrified as they were, Deontic and Sentry knew to hang back, to watch this from afar. There was clearly a moment passing between the couple. They didn't have to wait long. Mello drew away and hugged him at once. "Manino peroroso." He smiled and then patted Matt's back and dashed away to that last wall-mounted ladder up towards the sky. "Mello!" Deontic yelled with all the authority that she could muster. Mello didn't even look back. Matt did, but with a smirk. Even Sentry released his grip on her arm and ran across the ladder. Deontic was left to groan impotently. "Don't go up there!" It was too late. Mello was already through the exit, wind howling past him and chilling them all. Matt had just beat Sentry to the ladder, but they both climbed up after the Slav. Deontic whimpered and jogged up after them. There was only a small platform upon which to stand, so they crowded upon it. The rest of the roof wasn't meant for anybody but stevedores and birds. The inadequacy of the battlements was even more in evidence here than when viewed from below. There were even small guttering gaps at strategic points through them. "Ornamental," Sentry declared. "Mid-Victorian folly." Mello had Matt's hand, but his attention was on the rest of the roof. "He must have gone over from here." Matt leaned forward to peer over the battlements. Mello tightened his grip on his husband's hand, and Matt concurred. "Yeah, that looks about right for falling onto the cobblestones in the yard." "And of course," Sentry added, "still doing it." Deontic froze on the spot, her eyes tightly closed. Why did someone have to say that? That's the end of chapter 19. What I'm going to do is, it's because it's been about an hour, I'm going to pause the live stream for a second so I can save this recording, and then I'll start up again for chapter 20 onwards. Right, so 2 seconds. Ooh.